Hello everyone, it's Coco Joe Long, or Coco, or KLR, or whatever I'm going by right now, your ever so slightly pretentious manga and comic critic. I was thinking about doing a video on the first few chapters of Love Rush, but the only things I have to say about that particular manga is that the art is nice, and that the series botched the introduction of the main character, which got me thinking about the more interesting topic of main character introductions in manga, which is a vastly more interesting discussion to have. In any type of media, hooking the reader or viewer is essential. You have to make them interested in what you want them to watch or read. If you fail, odds are good that they will abandon your work without a second thought and move on to something else. Even if the last half of your fantasy epic is the stuff of genius, if the first few chapters are boring or outright bad, a lot of people won't care. There is a reason why the first chapter of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures opens with a strange Aztec human sacrifice with an evil stone mask, before then jumping into Victorian-era melodrama, and why Hirohiko Araki makes Dio Brando so over-the-top and evil from the get-go. He wanted to pull people into the story, and his success over the past several decades has shown that it worked. The simple and iconic origin stories of various Marvel and DC superheroes are also testament to this idea. Spider-Man's origin sells the idea of great power and great responsibility. Iron Man's origin was designed to force the readers of the 60s to empathize with an arms dealer. And the first tale of the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott, sold you on the historical nature of his powers. Manga is a very cutthroat industry, and if you don't make a good first impression, it can kill your series stone dead. Especially if you're a new, unproven mangaka that nobody has any faith in. Luckily, there's an almost countless number of ways to create intrigue in a series, including a visually creative setting, a compelling mystery, a brief flash of an interesting future event, impressive artwork, pulse-pounding action, hilarious comedy, a dramatic cliffhanger, a tender moment, and, of course, the likeable main character. Ideally, a series should do more than one of these things early on, but I'll try to stay focused on main characters this time around. It is worth noting, however, that the protagonist of a series doesn't have to be good, or pure, or heroic, or noble, or even very likeable when we first meet them. But the series should make it clear that this is somebody worth following, even if it's just for very surface and superficial reasons. Like the early parts of Berserk, in which Guts is just an impressive fighter. He initially lacks the sympathetic traits or complex personality that would be revealed later, and he was just an amoral monster killer. But the fact he was so good at his job and had a giant sword was enough to start the series with, even when it wasn't very good in comparison to the rest of the series, and Guts has some moments that are tremendously contradictory with what we learn about him later on. In hindsight, the early parts of Berserk are fairly awful when compared to the rest of the series. Anyway, how do manga authors get you invested in their main characters? Let's start with three simple and very well-known shonen heroes and go on from there. Monkey D. Luffy, Naruto Uzumaki, and Ichigo Kurosaki. Let's also keep things simple and focused on the first chapters and episodes of their various series. All three of these characters gained additional backstories and development later on in the narrative. Sometimes it's interesting, other times it's a detriment, but that's not what we're going to focus on right now. In the first chapter of Naruto, Masashi Kishimoto sets himself up for an uphill battle. He explains the heroic and noble legacy of the Hokage before having Naruto deface the monument designed to honor their sacrifice. From the beginning, we see that Naruto Uzumaki is a troublemaker, and why people don't think kindly of him. But as the chapter goes on, we learn that Naruto acts this way because he was mistreated and neglected by the other villagers for the reasons surrounding his birth, and this is the only way he can get their attention. Not only that, but we learn that Naruto does indeed respect the Hokage and understands why they're important. He also has a noble ambition of proving himself to the village despite their hatred of him. He's also capable of working extremely hard to succeed, and does, in fact, have the capacity to do good and to care for others. This is highlighted when he uses the difficult Shadow Clone Jutsu to rescue his mentor Iruka from certain danger, despite the risk present to Naruto's own life. In one chapter, we see what makes Naruto a likable character. He's passionate, hard-working, and ambitious. we see on a small scale that the village is wrong about him. Despite being the host of a demon, Naruto is ultimately a good person. Sure, you can find him annoying, but at least you know a lot about this kid from the get-go, and the characterization established in the first 52 pages of the series will be important for the hundreds of chapters to come. From ninjas to pirates, it's time to talk about Monkey D. Luffy. Interestingly, both the manga and the anime have different ways of introducing Straw Hat Luffy. The manga starts with Luffy's backstory, motivation, and his relationship with red-haired Shanks. The anime opens with an attack by the Alveda pirates, and Luffy's origins are instead revealed in the 4th episode. Either version works. The manga gives you the emotional gut punch that is Shanks losing his arm to protect Luffy, while the anime showcases Luffy's normal personality as a loud, friendly, somewhat clueless but ultimately competent and not very piratey hero, while leaving his personal history a mystery for a while. Personally, the anime's approach is something I prefer, because it waits until you've gotten a grasp of Luffy as a character in the present day before hitting you with his surprisingly tragic past. By contrast, Ichigo Kurosaki from Bleach is a more grounded character and has a more rough edge to him. Sure, he's ultimately a compassionate and protective figure, but his immediate introduction shows him as a guy who doesn't take lip from anyone. He beats the tar out of some thugs for damaging a memorial, and kicks a god of death to the floor for ignoring him. He's a sane man to a wacky father and a somewhat childish soul reaper. When his family is attacked by a monstrous hollow, he breaks free from a binding spell out of sheer will and accepts power from Rukia Kuchiki, transforming him into a soul reaper and giving him the physical strength needed to cut down this creature and save his family. Again, Ichigo is a hero, and he will do anything to protect what is important to him, which makes him admirable as a person. But we also understand that he is a character who would rather live a normal life than be a superhero, at least initially. All 3 of these protagonists are different, and the series they exist inside of are completely different in terms of tone and style. But all 3 of these series have one thing in common, and that is a good first chapter that establishes the basic characterization of the hero that will carry them through story arc after story arc after story arc. And in a magazine like Shonen Jump, where a series normally has 16 chapters to prove itself or risk cancellation, that is key to the survival of a franchise. Heck, Bleach manages to introduce a major supporting character in the form of Rukia, while also establishing Ichigo's character at the same time. Other less famous shonen heroes with strong introductions are all over the place. Shaman King's Yo Asakura is friendly and relaxed, and when we first see him he's hanging out with ghosts. Which tells us that there's something more to this mellow guy than meets the eye. Before we even learn what a shaman is, or that Yo can channel spirits to increase his abilities. In fact, Yo's relaxed nature makes him special as a protagonist in Shonen Battle series, even before we learn what his motivation is. Case Closed or Detective Conan makes it very clear that Jimmy Kudo, or Shinjichi Kudo, is incredibly intelligent, somewhat full of himself, in love with Rachel Moore, or Ran Mori, obsessed with mystery stories, good at soccer or football, a gifted and respected detective despite only being 16 years old, and just can't help but get involved in solving crimes. Also, he cannot go anywhere without somebody getting murdered. There's no special reason for that, aside from him being the lead character in a series about solving murders. The first chapter ends with Kudo being knocked out by some mysterious men in black and being drugged with a chemical that turns him into a child, setting up the premise of the series and just how talented our hero is while providing a fairly decent cliffhanger. Eija Yoshina from Siren is a carefree high schooler who gets into fights all the time and is pining after a girl and lives at home with his older sister. One day, for various reasons, Eija runs into a classmate after school, Sakuroko Animaya, who was the one to comfort him after his mother's death when they were younger, but since then has become icy and quiet. When Sakuroko, who Eija barely talks to anymore, mysteriously begs for his help and disappears, Eija feels compelled to help her. He even gives up a chance to be rich, and gets into a shouting match with a threatening, potentially inhuman woman over the phone to find out what happened to Sakuroko, before storming off to find another way. Also, when being chased by thugs who seem to be involved with Sakuroko's disappearance, and after finding out that the girl he was in love with was bullying Sakuroko, He takes the time to insult her to her face while running for his life because he knows just how mean she really is. Gentlemanly? No. Cathartic and totally worth it? Oh yeah. The compassionate delinquent is a fun character, and when Aja slams that phone booth door shut, you know he's going to uncover the mystery and get involved in the world of Siren to help this girl no matter what. And that's a good hook with the series, and that's not even getting into what Siren really is. For more serious and darker stories, Death Note shows the Light's intelligence, desire for justice, willingness to do horrible things, and traces of arrogance by the time the first chapter and episode ends. All of these aspects will be important to Light's character and will be vital to the plot going forward. Assassination Classroom makes it clear that Koro-sensei is a weird mix of a good but goofy teacher and a genuine threat to the entire human race, all with that same mocking smile, while also hinting that his motivations and desires have a little more complexity to them than just his own personal amusement. The opening of Vagabond shows us the extremes the animalistic Shinmen Takefo is willing to go to in a fight, and shows just how unglamorous a kill or be killed fight can be. And let's just bring things full circle and talk about harem series for a bit. Now, it's no secret that harem series spend a lot more focus on the girls rather than the main male lead, and as such, a common complaint of the genre is that the male leads of the series are boring so that the target audience can use them as a surrogate for a wish fulfillment fantasy. And that's often a fair complaint. But that doesn't mean you can just do it poorly. Love Rush has a main character introduced as a normal guy who has a very unique gene. That basically means that women find him drop-dead gorgeous and completely irresistible. Now, this is basically how the genre works, average guy surrounded by beautiful women who all love him, but this way of explaining it completely distorts any and all future romance in the series. Everything in the first chapter basically sets up that not only is there no chance for the bubbly angel girl with a funny name to actually win him over, but also that every single romantic interaction going forward, except for his childhood friend who is seemingly immune to his condition, is going to be predetermined by his genetic structure and not because of something he does. In addition to being a bad start for a romantic series, the chapter also does a terrible job of establishing the lead character, because his love interest has to tell us what makes him likable. He doesn't show any of these traits in a meaningful or dramatic or comedic way, she just says he has them. I don't think I have ever seen this handled this badly before. Unless Love Rush turns out to be an intelligent deconstruction of the genre, or was designed from the beginning to be a short-lived series, there are harem series with much better openings than this. Heck, there are Monster Girl, harem, romantic comedy manga with better openings and lead characters than this. That subgenre of a subgenre is getting much larger in recent years than you would think. It's very strange. Let's pick Rosario Vampire as an example. Early on, Sukune Anno is just some guy with nothing special about him who has a love at first sight type moments with the most beautiful girl in school on the first day of high school. After the initial shock of learning that she's a vampire, he accepts it. Then when he learns that every single person in the school is some type of supernatural creature and some of them eat humans, he basically tries to withdraw from the school as soon as possible, only to turn around and try and help Mocha when she's in danger, even at the cost of his own life. He shows kindness, fear, bravery, common sense, all in one chapter. No, it's not a complex character, and Rosario Vampire was not the pinnacle of the medium or anything close to that. Although the second season had much better artwork, but at least you could tell why girls would like him as a person. He had at least some traits that made him likable, even in a very basic human decency way, and the reader was shown his personality rather than having it exposited to us. Another, more recent and better example is Asahi Kuramine from My Monster Secret, or Actually I Am. The series has quite a few names. Asahi's special gimmick is that he just can't lie, or keep secrets. His circle of friends do not trust him with information, but they like him for his good nature and trust him in a much broader sense. He works up the nerve to confess his feelings to the mysterious and reserved Yuko Shiragame. only to find out she's a vampire. Not only that, but he learns that the quiet, controlled girl he fell in love with is really outgoing, friendly, emotional, talkative, and just a little bit dense. When it turns out that Yuko has to leave school because somebody found out her secret, Asahi quickly figures out that going to this school and keeping her secret identity is so important to her that she is willing to isolate herself from her peers and act like she's unapproachable, despite how kind and talkative she really is. In short, he thinks that Yuko has been lonely this entire time and has denied herself happiness, and Asahi won't stand for it. As a result, he loudly promises to keep his mouth shut until the day he dies so that she can stay in school and be happy. He completely butchers his love confession, but ends up becoming close friends with Yuko as a result. Again, he's just a good person, which is shown through his dialogue, his actions, and surprisingly good insight into somebody else's feelings. He's a character that is instantly likable, and even has a pre-established circle of friends that helps with character interaction and comedy. Asahi Korimine is a good main character from the beginning of his series, which is a good thing for a romantic comedy series to have, likable romantic leads. Even before any romance has taken place, because Yuko is a really fun character, let's not forget about her. It feels like that was enough examples to get the ball rolling. I can't tell if this video started out as a discussion and turned into a tirade, or a tirade that turned into a discussion. Love Rush isn't terrible, it's just not very good. If the first 2 chapters had been compressed into 1 chapter, the series would have gotten to what makes it slightly noticeable, which is the main character confessing his feelings to his childhood friend and her dealing with that revelation, much faster, and it would have made for a much stronger first impression. But hopefully I've explored some ideas of how manga main characters make a good, strong first impression on the reader. Of course, most of these series establish more than just the main character in the first chapters, and I am well aware that there are dozens of characters I could talk about that really deserve respect for how they start their series that aren't just limited to manga, but anime as well. There's just simply not enough time to list them. But now some questions for the viewers at home. What are some of your favourite main character introductions in anime and manga? In fact, what are some of your favourite first episodes or first chapters from a anime or manga series? What do you want to see when you start a new anime or manga series? What parts are worth discussing or examining in videos like this one? And what's a series that introduces its main elements badly? Please let me know in the comments of this video, or over social media, or by making your own video. If you do that, let me know. I'll definitely watch it. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again some other time. By the way, Love Rush is being cancelled in Shonen Jump because of its poor reception. I think that might articulate the point I was making. Hopefully, the artist comes back with something better that has a much stronger start. I'm probably never going to say Kokoro, Roko, Rokoko ever again, and that's not something that makes me happy. Anyway, see you next time. Goodbye.